Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, February 28th, 2022, 23, and today we are going to be talking about Senator Jon Tester from the state of Montana now seeking re-election in this battleground state for control of the Senate in 2024 and how it benefits the Democratic Party on the overall general front, considering that Jon Tester has maintained a level of popularity and as a rare state, red state Democrat, he has proven himself time and time again from 2006 to 2012 to 2018. Jon Tester enters into 2024 with a very good shot at winning re-election. Now, this has tremendous political implications for the Democratic Party. Knowing Jon Tester as a Democrat in this state means that he provides the Democratic Party the only opportunity at winning in this otherwise solid red state. When Jon Tester won in 2018, it came to a surprise to many Republicans. Many of them who had expected to flip numerous seats from the Democratic Party were ultimately Democrats like Jon Tester, including lists going down to Sherrod Brown, to Joe Manchin, have been able to win in red states because of the national environment. But it was in 2016 when Donald Trump won the state of Montana by over 20 points where it really went to show that this state was not competitive for the Democratic Party. The last time it was competitive was in the 2008 election when John McCain only won the state by just a few points. Since then, it's been a solid red state on the presidential level and Democrats haven't had much hope. But then in 2018, Jon Tester's seat was up for re-election and he won and defeated Matt Rosendale, at the time the incumbent House of Representatives member. The interesting thing about Montana is that there are more House members than there are Senate members, but Jon Tester won 50.3 to 46.8. Now, Jon Tester has a history of close elections, which makes this even better for the Democratic Party, knowing that he knows how to win in tight races. He hasn't been handed this senateship and now all of a sudden is entering into a competitive election for the first time in his life. He's known them ever since he stepped foot on Capitol Hill. Jon Tester won in 2006 in a blue wave year by just under a point against, at the time, incumbent Conrad Burns. In 2012, he ran against Danny Ryberg, who ended up winning 45% of the vote to Jon Tester's 49%. This was at the same time that Mitt Romney was winning the state of Montana by a pretty solid amount. Then again, in 2018, he had a competitive race as well, but again, Jon Tester knows how to win the close and competitive races. The only silver lining here for the Democratic Party is that from 2016 to 2020, Montana did shift quite considerably, if you ask me. Joe Biden lost the state of Montana by a margin of about 16 points, which is a 4-point shift relative to 2016. Better than the overall national average in terms of state-by-state analysis. That isn't to say that this state is going in the direction or trending blue, but it is saying that the Democratic Party did do better here in 2020 than they did in 2016 and did better than the national overall shift, considering that Joe Biden had some more considerable shifts in battleground states, but Montana was amongst one of the top states in terms of overall shifts towards the Democratic Party. Now, looking ahead to 2024, as the title might suggest from this Politico argument or article here, it bolsters Democrats in 2024. And the reason is that the map here doesn't have the best math for national Democrats. When you look at the states where Democrats currently have incumbents in, and we're going to consider for all purposes Utah. I don't know why I jumped to Montana to Utah, even though they're in the same line here, Arizona as a blue state. I know Kyrsten Sinema is independent. I have been very much caught up on that news. But for the sake of this video, because she does caucus with the Democrats, we're going to consider her as such, the same way we're going to consider Bernie Sanders and Angus King in these circumstances as Democrats for the sake of this scenario. So you bring the Democrats to about, 51 seats when all is said and done. Let me go ahead and make sure we're getting every single seat here for the Democrats. 51 seats. But the problem is that in terms of states where Democrats would otherwise have leads in, you are finding that the Republican Party will also be very competitive in many of them. You know, states such as Ohio, Democrats might be expecting to win here, but it's going to be hard fought, and it's certainly not going to be a state where Democrats can just skate to re-election the way they might have been able to in years past. Because this is a presidential year, things are pretty much going to be centered around a Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump potential matchup against President Biden, and it's going to be difficult to see how states vote against the overall national, presidential vote in their state, and that's bad news for Democrats. Because looking at the states where Democrats need to win in, if you're considering the 2020 election results, Republicans win the Senate off that alone. If you were to apply the 2020 Senate election results, Republicans win Montana, they win Ohio, they win West Virginia, and then it's done. 52-48 on that basis alone, which is already bad news for Democrats. And considering where they were in 2018, it went to show that even in a blue wave year, national partisanship was enough to sway certain states away from voting for Democrats, even if they may have been, in some senses, popular. For instance, Bill Nelson down in the state of Florida, because this was inherently a red state, Florida voted for Rick Scott by 0.2. Yes, it was close, but Democrats fell just short. In Indiana, a state that Donald Trump won by double digits in 2016, Joe Donnelly, the Democrat who, in many people's eyes, was going to win re-election or had a very good shot here, lost by 6. The reason being simple partisanship. Claire McCaskill in the state of Missouri lost to Josh Hawley despite being an incumbent, lost by 6 points, but again, it was partisanship. Some Democrats survived: Joe Manchin in West Virginia, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and the topic of this video, Jon Tester in Montana, but North Dakota, neighboring to Montana, Kevin Cramer won by 10. The reason being simple partisanship. The overall victories for the National Republican Party in these states was too much for Democrats to overcome in 2018. And looking at the results from 2012, the last time these Democrats were able to win, versus 2016, it was quite considerable. In these states alone, we can actually see it and visualize it. Thankful to this very, very useful website, map.jacksonjude.com. Check it out because it's super helpful for visualizing this. But the state of Florida got about 2 points more Republican relative to 2012, which isn't super substantial, but clearly it was enough. But really you saw this shine in the state of Missouri, which was 10 points more Republican in 2016 than 2012. Indiana, 9 points more Republican. North Dakota, 16 points more Republican. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Ohio, 11 points more Republican, Democrats still won. West Virginia, 15 points more Republican, but Democrats still won. But if you think about the way that we're looking at some of these results, what you are going to find here is that because of those shifts, North Dakota flipped, Missouri flipped, Indiana flipped, Florida flipped. Not to mention, though, that I will say the Republicans running in West Virginia, bad. Ohio, bad. Montana, not too strong. A scandal-plagued incumbent representative. But in Indiana, Mike Braun was relatively scandal-free. Rick Scott was already the governor. Kevin Cramer, the scandal-free incumbent representative. In Missouri, Josh Hawley, a representative, a name people recognize. A former statewide elected official. These are people that did not carry with them the baggage that you saw with Patrick Morrisey in West Virginia, or Jim Renacki in Ohio, I'm hopefully saying that name correctly, or Matt Rosendale in Montana. Democrats in many ways lucked out. And chances are they could luck out in 2024 with Jon Tester. But the map here isn't conducive to a Democratic victory yet again. And considering that, the map used to look like this, maybe it would have looked better for Democrats. But now, Democrats have already lost some of the key states, and chances are they're on track to lose more. In terms of the swing states in 2024, nearly all of them are Democratic-held seats. Montana, Nevada, Arizona, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. These are states that on the baseline will be competitive no matter what, unless there's a huge, drawback the way there was in 2022, which I honestly think we shouldn't count out. But based off where we are today, let's count them in as swing states. Look at where that brings the Democrats to, 43. Look at it where that brings the Republican Party to, 49. The reason I don't include Texas and Florida is because I think based off of what we've seen from 2018 till now, I'm not super confident they will be close. I think we could really see Texas more than Florida, but even throwing it into the equation, in a very good case for the National Democrats, it would be 10 states in totality that are immediately categorized as swing states, and chances are you could make the argument for New Mexico, Virginia, and Minnesota. That brings us to 13, and where does that bring the national number? 40 seats solid for the Democratic Party, and that's assuming Maine doesn't join the bunch, which unfortunately for Democrats could also become a possibility, but 47 for Republicans. At the bare minimum, Republicans are winning 47 seats in 2024. At the bare minimum for Democrats, they're winning 40. I don't think a 60-40 scenario is very likely, but I think it really comes down to incumbency status. It really comes down to overall popularity for the Democratic Party. And right now, I think they have the upper hand in many states. While, I do think they're going to win in the Rust Belt with those incumbents, but I also question their ability to win in some of these red states, which is why Jon Tester is so important. If I was to call it today, I would categorize states as such. I would say, the Rust Belt remains with the Democratic Party narrowly. Ohio, I'm iffy about, so I'm going to revert that one back to swing state status. I think Republicans win West Virginia. I think Democrats win the neighboring state of Virginia. I think Republicans win Texas. I think they win Florida. I think Democrats win New Mexico. I think they win Nevada. I think they win Arizona. That leaves us with 2 states that determine the balance of power. And off this number alone, if Republicans win the White House, they win control of the Senate. But if Democrats, for instance, are able to win in 2024, it comes down to Ohio and Montana primarily. That may not be reality in a few months from now, but that is where we are right now. And I think while Democrats do have a good shot at Ohio, I don't think it's the easiest thing to see happening. But Montana is where it really happens. Without Jon Tester, Montana is a safe red state. North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, these are not states that are going to be competitive again. The competitive states from 2018 on the Republican level are not going to be competitive again. Look at North Dakota. 10 points, it's going to be 30. Missouri, 6 points, it's going to be 17. 16. Indiana, 6 points, going to be 16 at least, right? Tennessee, which was seen as a swing state because the former governor was running, no longer, going to be 30, right? So looking at these states, Mississippi, an 8-point margin in the special election, 6-point margin in the special election, it's going to be at least 16. The Republican swing states from 2018 are no more. With the exception of Texas and Florida, it's hard to see where Democrats even have any opportunity at advancements. And with the withdrawal of an incumbent, it's clear to see why these are now solid red states. And if Jon Tester was to say that he was going to pull out, as some incumbents make the decision to, if they think they're going to lose the election anyway, what I think we see from this is that Jon Tester thinks he's going to have a good shot at winning. He's probably right on that end. But it also means this state is still contentious. Without it, Republicans are significantly closer at winning the Senate majority. Democrats with it, however, are significantly closer to retaining the Senate majority. Where we are right now is analyzing every single swing state, taking in everything into consideration, but Jon Tester has saved the Democratic Party's chances in 2024 in the state of Montana. It doesn't mean it's going to be easily won, but without him, this state would not even be remotely competitive. At the default, Montana is a red state. With Jon Tester in the mix, it's purple. He has just enough blue to make that state purple when it comes down to this race. And if there's more of a focus on the House race in Montana's 1st district, it's possible too that Democrats are also in a competitive position there as well. Because it went to Ryan Zinke, the former representative from this district, by a margin of about 5 to 6 points. If 2024 is better for national Democrats, Montana's 1st could flip too. And if there's a hyper focus on it and Democrats try to drive up turnout there, it will also help Jon Tester and in turn help the National Democratic Party. It looks like there are reasons for investment for Democrats in the state of Montana at this point, especially given that Jon Tester will run. So I can't exactly call the race as it is right now in terms of what I think will end up happening, but what we already know is that this race is competitive. The Cook Political Report is more, leaning towards Tester than I am. They have the ranking currently as lean Democrat, but Inside Elections and Sabato's Crystal Ball, I agree with more on the battleground and toss-up categorization. In terms of hypothetical polling, you're seeing ties or narrow leads for Jon Tester, but nothing super significant. These are Republican internals from just a few weeks ago that show a tie with Greg Gianforte. 40% for Matt Rosendale, 40% for Ryan Zinke. These are Republicans, though. And what I will say here is that, you have Republican polls showing Jon Tester leading, but I'm also starting to see a ceiling here at 45, 46%, depending on the candidate, which means, and we know this from polls that have been taken this early on for 2020, for 2022, that Republicans usually win about 90% of the early undecided vote. About 90% of that undecided vote right now is probably going to go to the GOP, which means the GOP is honestly probably ahead at this point. But that's just based off of simple partisanship and the fact that Jon Tester is running in a presidential year. We will see what happens, though, because many Republicans also are expressing interest in this race. It could be a showdown between the two representatives here from Greg Gianforte, who is the governor of the state of Montana. I mean, you could see, back and forth, Republicans in this state, back and forth competition between the top Republicans, but Jon Tester already declaring he has cleared the field for himself in the Democratic primary. I have no doubts that he will win that quite easily. But the question is, does he win the general election? But the answer is, we don't know. But he certainly has a significantly higher chance than any other Democrat in the state, and he provides the Democratic Party an opportunity at retaining Senate control in 2024, because without him, it would be nearly entirely lost. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.